The military built a supercomputer out of PlayStation 3s because consumer video games outperformed enterprise military technology. That single sentence dominated tech headlines for a decade. In late 2010, inside a high-security facility in Rome, New York, the United States Air Force Research Laboratory flipped the switch on a massive computing array. It was composed of 1,760 Sony PlayStation 3 gaming consoles stacked in high-density rack mounts, chained together with custom network switches and specialized vector processing servers. The media framed it as an unprecedented triumph of hacker ingenuity over bloated defense procurement. A 500 teraflop supercomputer built for under $2 million, running at a fraction of the cost of traditional Cray or IBM systems. It was hailed as the ultimate proof that off-the-shelf gaming hardware had eclipsed purpose-built defense computers in sheer raw power. But that popular narrative hides a completely different engineering reality. The Air Force didn't build the Condor Cluster because PlayStation 3s were superior military computers. They built it to exploit a temporary financial loophole in Sony's consumer marketing strategy. A loophole that instantly exposed critical hardware flaws that made the entire system nearly unusable for serious military defense operations. The myth states that consumer gaming technology reached a tipping point in the late 2000s, where mainstream mass-market chips were so advanced that defense agencies could construct world-class supercomputers at a 90% discount. According to this narrative, the Cell broadband engine inside the PlayStation 3 was a military-grade processor hiding inside a consumer toy. Pop culture accounts claim that hostile nation-states were buying thousands of game consoles to build guidance chips for intercontinental ballistic missiles, forcing governments to restrict console exports. The story suggested that conventional supercomputer vendors like Cray, HP, and Intel were selling overpriced, outdated silicon, while gamer hardware was delivering pure, unadulterated floating-point compute supremacy. Headlines asserted that the Air Force's Condor Cluster proved that high-performance computing had been democratized, and that future military intelligence processing, ranging from synthetic aperture radar synthesis to high-definition satellite imagery enhancement, would permanently transition to low-cost consumer gaming rigs linked over standard networks. People believed this story because on paper, the underlying hardware numbers were staggering for 2006. Sony, IBM, and Toshiba spent over $4 billion developing the Cell broadband engine architecture. The chip featured a single 64-bit PowerPC control engine paired with 8 specialized vector coprocessors called synergistic processing elements, or SPEs. Running at 3.2 GHz, a single PlayStation 3 could deliver over 200 gigaflops of theoretical single-precision floating-point performance. When Sony launched the console at $500, independent hardware teardowns revealed that each unit actually cost Sony roughly $800 to manufacture. Sony was deliberately losing $300 per unit on hardware, planning to recoup the massive loss through game licensing fees and software royalties. The US Air Force Research Laboratory recognized a massive arbitrage opportunity. By purchasing 1,760 consoles, the Air Force effectively extracted over $500,000 in direct hardware subsidies from Sony's corporate balance sheet. Furthermore, early PlayStation 3 models shipped with an intentional feature called Other OS, which natively allowed users to install Linux distributions directly onto the console's hypervisor. To the public and non-specialist tech journalists, the math appeared foolproof. Chain together thousands of heavily subsidized Linux micronodes, harness the multi-core Cell vector engines, and instantly achieve top-tier supercomputing power for a tiny fraction of normal government budget allocations. When you look past the raw floating-point marketing figures and analyze the system-level engineering, the myth completely dissolves. The Condor Cluster suffered from 3 catastrophic architectural flaws: mathematical precision asymmetry, severe memory starvation, and a total lack of hardware fault tolerance. First, consider the floating-point math. High-performance military simulations, radar processing, and orbital mechanics require double-precision 64-bit calculations to prevent compounding rounding errors. The Cell broadband engine inside the PlayStation 3 was optimized almost entirely for single-precision 32-bit graphics math. While a single PS3 delivered 204.8 gigaflops of 32-bit single-precision compute, its 64-bit double-precision performance plummeted to a pathetic 14.6 gigaflops per chip. a 14-to-1 performance penalty. Second, the memory architecture was a severe bottleneck. The PS3 console shipped with only 256 megabytes of XDR system RAM and 256 megabytes of GDDR3 graphics RAM. In supercomputing, high compute density requires proportional memory capacity and memory bandwidth to feed data to the arithmetic logic units. The cell chip's vector processors spent massive amounts of time completely stalled, waiting for data to arrive through a tiny, sub-half gigabyte memory pipe. To make matters worse, the nodes were networked together over consumer-grade gigabit Ethernet with high interconnect latency, compared to the low-latency InfiniBand networks running at 40 gigabits per second used in true enterprise supercomputers. Data transfers between nodes took longer than the actual calculations. Third, consumer game consoles completely lack error-correcting code, or ECC memory. Enterprise supercomputers utilize ECC RAM to detect and fix single-bit flip errors caused by background cosmic radiation and thermal fluctuations. In an array of 1,760 non-ECC consoles running thousands of parallel matrix transformations across millions of memory cells, bit flips occurred continuously. Without ECC protection, silent data corruption corrupted complex radar processing runs without generating an error code, rendering long compute jobs mathematically unreliable. The final death blow came directly from Sony. In April 2010, fearing software piracy and hypervisor exploits, Sony released PlayStation 3 firmware 3.21, which permanently disabled the other OS feature. When individual consoles in the Air Force cluster suffered thermal failure or hardware power supply burnouts, the Air Force could not simply buy off-the-shelf replacement units from retail stores, because newer stock shipped with locked firmware that blocked Linux. The cluster became an unmaintainable, hardware-locked dead end. The PS3 Condor cluster was not a triumphant paradigm shift in supercomputing. It was an awkward, short-lived financial hack that ultimately proved consumer gaming consoles are fundamentally unsuitable for enterprise-grade high-performance computing. The Air Force achieved cheap 32-bit single-precision speeds solely because Sony heavily subsidized the physical hardware manufacturing costs. The moment enterprise graphics processing units, or GPUs, matured, the console supercomputer concept was rendered completely obsolete. Nvidia introduced the CUDA platform along with dedicated Tesla computing cards, which featured full double precision support, gigabytes of dedicated ECC memory per board, and high-speed PCIe bus interconnects designed specifically for server racks. The Condor cluster was decommissioned shortly after its deployment, serving as a cautionary engineering lesson. Raw theoretical clock speeds and subsidized retail pricing can never compensate for memory bottlenecks, network latency, and zero hardware fault tolerance. To be technically precise, acknowledging the failure of consumer console clusters does not mean the cell processor architecture itself was a total failure. IBM took the valuable architectural lessons learned from the consumer cell chip and engineered a dedicated, enterprise-grade variant called the PowerXL 8i. This upgraded processor fixed the major flaws of the PS3's chip by featuring a revised floating-point unit that executed double-precision operations at 5 times the speed, alongside full support for enterprise DDR2 ECC memory. IBM paired these revised processors with AMD Opteron host CPUs inside specialized IBM Blade Center QS22 servers. In 2008, Los Alamos National Laboratory built the Roadrunner supercomputer using these enterprise IBM blades. Roadrunner became the very first supercomputer on Earth to break the sustained petaflop performance barrier, reaching 1.026 petaflops on the LINPACK benchmark. The difference was absolute. Roadrunner succeeded because it used enterprise-grade hardware with low-latency InfiniBand connections, high-capacity ECC memory, and robust double-precision math units. The PS3 cluster failed because it attempted to substitute cheap consumer toys for robust enterprise engineering. In computer engineering, there are no shortcuts around physics and systems architecture. True computational